Hello, I'm Kads, and welcome to today's video. So we're going to be doing another free-to-play champion showcase today, this time featuring the recently buffed King Gallcobar. I have not seen any content on buffed, or as I'm calling him, King Gallcobuffed. I haven't seen much content on him after he got his buff, and I tested him out a couple of weeks ago, specifically in the Dragon's Lair because his passive intrigued me after they reworked it, and it definitely did exactly what I expected. So we're going to showcase him today, just in case you guys happen to have him sitting around in your vault and you've been struggling or want a potentially faster team when it comes to Dragon up and through hard mode 10. And so we'll highlight his abilities, particularly in that fight. We'll talk about the build and showcase him, and of course against the Dragon. So King Gallcobar pre-buff was a pretty useless champion in that, you know, he could only place poisons if they had buffs that he removed, which was kind of terrible. He had a decent cleanse, and he could convert basically all debuffs, kind of like Grinch Killjoy. He can convert all debuffs into continuous heal, so that was a big heal, and they kind of changed that slightly. And then he always had a shield on the A1, and then his passive used to be if you were under a shield, then he could activate poisons on the target when they attack the shield. But they've reworked all of his abilities, and so he's a lot better, again, specifically in the Dragon, but you could use him in some other areas as well. So the A1 is largely unchanged, but it will place a shield on himself and the one with the champion with the lowest ally, so 15% of his max HP. So you do want to build him with a lot of HP because he is a HP. Well, he's not. His damage is based on attack, but we don't really care about his damage. But he is a support, and all of his abilities that use HP scale off his HP. So you want to build him with high HP. The A2. Now, how it works is that it's an AoE attack, has an 80% chance of removing, or 100% chance when booked of removing all buffs on a 3-turn cooldown. But regardless of the booking, it will just place 2 poisons on each enemy, and then it will place up to 3 more poisons additionally if they have any buffs that he is removing, which is a great ability that can now enable you to place up to 5 poisons if the stars align and the enemy goes first and they have a bunch of buffs. But in more situations when you're going to be faster in the waves, which is what we're going to be doing today, then you're just going to start off with the basis of 2 poisons, which is pretty much on par on a 3-turn cooldown with most other poisoners in the game. And then lastly, on the A3 here, he does have a full cleanse that will remove all debuffs from all allies and place 2 continuous heals on all allies for 1 turn. You know, obviously we wish this was 2 turns, but at the bare minimum, he still functions as a decent healer cleanser for the squad. But more importantly, he also places a shield for 2 turns, and the value of the shield is 25% of his max HP. So it is stronger than the A1 shield, just worthy of note. And then the passive, this is what really caught my eye in terms of the utility, of potential utility of this champion after the rework. And then it is whenever an enemy under a poison attacks an ally, instantly activates all poison debuffs on that enemy once per attacked ally. So if you don't have some sort of cool poison explosion team composition or poison explosion, whatever, you know, obviously you still have to get through the waves to get to the Dragon, but once you get to the Dragon, as long as you place poisons on him, as soon as he attacks anyone on your team, which is practically guaranteed, he will activate all poisons on the Dragon, which is really, really cool. It's harder to kind of set it up unless you have, you know, really synergistic champions to go alongside him to properly set that up, but we'll try and show you a kind of budget friendly team that kind of works with this taking advantage of this fact. So it will also activate 1 continuous heal on all allies, or on the attacked ally, but you know, in this case it's going to be AoEs and whatnot, so he's going to activate a bunch of continuous heals. Now, right out of the gate, you may have noticed that he is completely unbooked at the moment, and yes, we are going to showcase him unbooked, but he will work, of course, more efficiently if he is booked. But the point of this is to show you that it's not really that necessary, and the main reason why is because, like I said, the poisons that he places on the A2 are agnostic of whether or not he's booked. He just has effectively 100% chance to place the 2 poisons. Otherwise, we would need to book him. But you can book him just to cycle through his abilities a little bit more properly. And we've adjusted the team to compensate for the fact that he does not have his ability on a 3-turn cooldown like he's supposed to be. So in terms of the build on this guy, I am just making it easy for myself to showcase him, and I just transferred all 6 pieces of my current Gallcobar build. Gallcobar is my primary poisoner when it comes to my standard Dragon hard mode 10 team, which is about a 30-second-ish run nowadays, but he is in stalwart gear, so that just helps him take less damage from the boss, from the AoE attacks. But that's not really necessarily the best build for King Gallcobar specifically, but that's just the easiest thing I could throw together. I think the best build for him was probably going to be shield set or bolster, just because you're protecting your team, you know, from the initial onslaught of the poisons, just because the team we're going to run around him, there's no block debuffs champion that's kind of preempting the poison that the Dragon's going to place on us, and we are dependent on people coming back around and cleansing all the poisons off. And so in order to kind of tank the first hits, the shield set definitely works to kind of make sure that your team doesn't die to the poisons. So in terms of the total stats on the champion right now, 63,000 on the HP, which could be higher. Of course, he's level 35. He's not even fully maxed out just because it's not really needed, because the team is relatively tanky and survivable, as we'll see. And it's just not really required in this instance. But obviously, you'd want to max him out, get him masteries and whatnot. So he probably would be closer to maybe 70, 80,000 HP when he's fully maxed out. Same thing for the defense. It's a bit lower than it should be, probably around 3,000 if he was fully leveled. But the speed is what really matters. 274 on the speed, and then the accuracy and resistance is what matters as well. I built him in a kind of high resist, high accuracy build. So 450 resistance is the target for being able to resist the poison that the dragon places on you. That way you don't have to worry about him dying to the poisons, and he can kind of support and heal and cleanse for the rest of the team, as well as be an offensive poisoner. 350 plus is the target there for the accuracy up and through hard mode stage 10. We're a little bit shy of that, but it's close enough that most often we're going to land the poisons against the dragon, even though technically speaking, he's not really the primary poisoner for the dragon. He is the primary poisoner for the waves, however. When it comes to the relic, I have nothing crazy on him, just a golden elixir, up to 6 stars so that he can heal himself a little bit. That's primarily just because, again, he's not fully leveled, so his stats aren't maxed out, so he's not as survivable as he should be. And then I just put brimstone on him just to kind of have a basic 2-star blessing on him. When he attacks the boss, you can get brimstone, which is just free damage. And then at the moment, he has no masteries just because he's not going to be a primary champion on my account. I did test him out as a swap for, or an inclusion into my Dragon Hard Mode team, and it was a little bit slower / potentially less consistent over in aggregate over the long haul. So I didn't end up switching to him, therefore he didn't really end up needing masteries. But if I was to get masteries, they'd be pretty standard. I would hug the left-hand side of the offense tree, just come down to War Master, again thinking just purely PvE content, so War Master is a little bit of extra damage, and then I'd go down the support tree, pretty standard debuffer stuff. Focusing on the more debuff heavy stuff, Arcane Celerity, probably would get Rapid Response as well. We want Evil Eye, maybe come over for Lasting Gifts, and then Sniper and or Master Hexer. I guess you don't really need Sniper in his kit, so probably Lasting Gifts, Master Hexer, that type of stuff. Buffs and debuffs, he benefits from both sides of the tree, of the support tree. So let's go ahead and see him in action. This is the team that I put together kind of around him, taking advantage of his skill. And this team is just kind of, again, just a proof of concept. It's a very bare bones team by comparison to some of the other champs I have on my account, but I just wanted to make it as accessible as possible within reason. And so we have Donatello in the mix there as our primary cleanser when we get to the boss, but also just the reset for the waves. You do want some reset champion, that way you can pop the poisons repeatedly on the waves. We have Dark Kale, who everyone can get from the Doom Tower secret room, so eventually you'll get him, but his job is literally, well, he has 2 jobs, but one of his main jobs for the waves is just to extend debuffs. That way we're extending the duration of the poisons that the other poisoners are placing, and that improves the power of Poison Explosion, but also he does have single target poisons that he can use on the dragon once we get to wave 3. We have Ezio, who everyone got for free if you've been playing for the last 8 months or so, and he's going to be our primary poison exploder for the waves. We have Calvlax in the mix. Obviously, most of you may not have Calvlax, but this could be substituted for the Epic Taurus, who can also place 4 AoE poisons. Granted, he's a little bit longer in terms of animations, and if you happen to have Tomb Lord as well, who's another legendary, but if you do happen to have him, he can work as well for placing 4 poisons rather, AoE. Let's go ahead and see this team in action. For wave 1, it's going to be pretty straightforward as far as how the team works. We got some poisons from Calvlax's passive. Again, that could be Taurus. King Gallcobar places his 2 poisons, Dark Kale extends them all, and then we pop them all with Ezio. But of course, Ezio is also placing some poisons of his own. We reset here. Now, normally, if he was booked, I would just instantly go back into the same cycle we used on wave 1, but because his poison ability is on a 4-turn cooldown, we are delaying everyone's abilities by 1 turn, but we're faster than the wave, so we'll come back around and cycle through it. But if he is booked on your account, then he's going to be a little bit faster and efficient through that stage. The other thing is if you're running him in a shield set, you'd be better off leading or opening with his A1 for the first wave there, or for the first hit on the boss, but I'm opting to use the A3 just to put up a shield just to kind of protect us from the first hit. But you can see there, the dragon attacked us, he had a bunch of poisons on him, and he took a buttload of damage off rip, and that is the power of the passive. So super strong and super fun. And yeah, this team takes about a minute or so, and yeah, Donnie gets the reset of course as well once we get to the dragon. But yeah, under a minute, super fast team. And again, this is a concept, a proof of concept. You could make it a lot more efficient by booking your King Gallcobar, of course. That would make the waves go a little bit quicker, but I think the concept is pretty straightforward. Of course, without Calvlax, you're not going to have the initial poisons off rip on the dragon, so it's going to be a little bit slower because of that as well. If you're running a Taurus, you're not going to have your abilities ready to go, and also if you're running Taurus, his AoE poison is on a 4-turn cooldown regardless, so you might have to have a similar setup up to this because you're going to have to delay a turn so that you don't activate the poisons before he places them. But there you go. Yeah, super fun team. We'll run it again just to, in case you missed it, just because it is a relatively quick run. But yeah, super fun. And like I said, his passive is what intrigued me the most, because I was like, I think this will work the way I imagined it will, and it does. So as soon as he attacks anyone, and of course it's an AoE attack, his first attack, so he's hitting everyone, therefore he's going to activate any and all poisons you put on him. Just super fun. But yeah, like I said, this is a bare bones team, meaning that if you have better poisoners, better debuff extenders, you have better champions or better activators, you can make this a lot faster. I mean, I guess, well, a little bit faster. It's already pretty fast at a minute. But there's a lot of potential here for a team like this based around, I should say, King Gallcobar, which is super cool. But yeah, once again, half of his HP already done just because of the poison that we placed on him, and as soon as he hits us. The cool thing is, as well, is that because of his ability rotation, you have time to kind of reset before he goes again, because he rears back after the second hit. This is on hard mode specifically, nonetheless still the case. And so you have time before he hits you again to kind of do stuff in between, get your cooldowns off, get your cleanses off for the poisons. As we're seeing here, we're healing up basically, so we're good to go. A little bit out of sync here as far as the amount of poisons we happen to place. And of course, excuse me, every time he attacks us, he's going to activate whatever poisons are on him. So again, this is not the most efficient team as far as the composition for setting him up, but just to kind of again, proof of concept to kind of show you how it would work. So just a little bit of bad RNG here, but it's going to take a little bit longer. But Donnie is going to keep us running here, keep us cycling through our abilities, and eventually we're going to activate it. So worst case takes about 90 seconds with some bad RNG. So just in case you wanted to build a team similar to this, I'll highlight the builds on the champions, although the specific builds are not that important for this composition, but their speeds are, in terms of them making sure that they go before the boss and they do their abilities at the appropriate time. So I guess we'll go from fastest to slowest, but the fastest on the team is Donatello, and so he's going to be our reset champion once we get to wave 2 and beyond. And his total stats are as follows: 87,000 on the HP, 3.3k on the defense, 291 on the speed. That's the most important thing. And then this is my arena build for him, 841 on the resistance, so super high resistance. Of course, you only need 450 plus if he's only going to be a PvE champion, but if you do use him like I do in the arena, then you're going to want bit more resistance. And the build here is a 4-piece untouchable and 4-piece chronophage with the 1 piece of supersonic. So that is my build on my Donnie. High resistance, so he can be anti-lockout is kind of the mindset there. In terms of the relic on him, I do have an Oculus Custodian, so he can cleanse himself, but really it's more of a resistance stat stick with the speed and the resistance and the HP, all of which are good for him. In terms of booking, he is fully booked. I went with Lightning Cage on the Blessing, of course, again, because I do have him in block debuffs or the Untouchable set, so it's protecting that. Of course, most people would run him in Stone Skin, so that's my proxy for Stone Skin is Untouchable in this case, but I wanted the extra resistance. And then for the Masteries, once again, optimized for PvE. You can take a look at those, but we're ending on Unshakable to index as much as possible into the resistance, and then the Lasting Gifts is a notable shout as well for the duration, extending the duration of the Continuous Heals and the strengthen buff. Next up was King Gallcobar, but we've already looked at his build. So after that, it would be Dark Kale again in the speed tune here. In terms of his build, he used to be in Relentless, but now he's just in a random set of gear just to make the speed tune work, because we don't really care, or we don't really want him to have Relentless in this instance, just because King Gallcobar is going to be cycling properly through his abilities. We're taking advantage of King Gallcobar's passive to activate the poisons more so than we're taking advantage of Dark Kale to activate the poisons. But you can definitely make use of his A1 and have him cycle through if you would like. So 56,000 on the HP, 3.3k on the attack, 2,800 on the defense, 257 on the speed. That's the most important thing. Full crit rate, because you do need him to crit to extend the debuffs on his A2, and then a little bit of crit damage, and then accuracy 350 plus again is what we were targeting. In terms of the relic, we don't have one on him, doesn't really need it. He is fully booked, of course, because he's an epic. I have cruelty on him just because he has a couple of AoE attacks, and then when he hits a single target, i.e. the boss, 3 times, it really stacks up the cruelty really quickly. So we're rocking with that. And I guess it's honorable mention that as long as you have 2 or more poisons out on the dragon, he cannot crit you, so you're not really subject to a big smack that might wipe your team or something like that, as long as he's under a couple of poisons. But that might be easier or harder to achieve depending upon your team comp, especially because, again, every time the dragon attacks, all poisons will be activated. In terms of the masteries, pretty standard here. The Crescent Moon that ends on Giant Slayer for the triple hitter on the A1 from the offense tree, and the support tree standard debuff for masteries here on the right-hand side. Next up, we have Ezio, who is missing a piece of gear, but that is, once again, just for the sake of the speed tune. But he is in my arena build, which is Pinpoint and Perception. And then the total stats here: 45,000 on the HP, 6.5k on the attack, 2,300 on the defense, 254 currently on the speed, but with his shield on, he's like 270 something, and then 600 on the accuracy. We don't need accuracy if he's under a veil, but because we're going to be cycling through his turns, he's eventually going to run out of the veil, so we do want him to have enough accuracy to land his debuffs in this particular comp. But of course, again, 350 plus is all you would need. This is an arena build in case we get our veil stripped off for some reason. He does have an Arachnal Elixir, which does boost the amount of damage from the poisons that he does. They scale off his attack. Of course, this is more potent in the arena, but nonetheless, his poisons technically are doing a little bit more damage than the ones placed by anyone else on the team. He is fully booked, and he is rocking the Lethal Dose Blessing, of course, because of that is one of the most busted things in the arena when I can help it. And then for the masteries, kind of treated him like a bomb champion in terms of masteries. So the attack, a rare attack pickup on the offense tree, and then we kind of stop halfway because we don't really care about the rest of it. And then most importantly, we're ending on Eagle Eye for the extra accuracy, and we're kind of focusing mostly on the support tree, a little bit of Cycle of Magic as well. Then last up, we have Calvlax, whose main job literally is just to stand there and use his passive, so his build is completely irrelevant for this particular fight. This is a spider PvE build, but it is perception and some savage gear. Total stats on him: 65,000 on the attack, 236 on the speed, full crit rate, 267 on the crit damage, so he does a little bit of damage if he gets off his A3 specifically against the boss, and then 386 on the accuracy. Again, that's more in line with where we're targeting, the 350 plus, in order to make sure he lands all the poisons. He also has an Arachnal Elixir. It's a little bit weaker than Ezio's, but still there. Boost the poison damage based on his attack. He is once again fully booked. I have Hero Soul on him as a blessing because, again, I use him in Spider, and that just boosts his damage potential against these minions. And then for the masteries, he is built like an enemy max HP nuker, so it's a relatively old school type of build, but ruthless ambush, more damage on the first hit when you're dealing with more damage when you're max HP, flawless execution for extra crit damage, and then standard debuff for masteries once again on the support tree. So as I mentioned at the beginning, King Gallcobar, even after the buff, his main role is really centered around dragon, but you could use him in some other dungeons as well as needed for anywhere that you, in any slot where you would use an AoE poison champion. So I'm thinking like normal ice golem type thoughts. In terms of that, but in general, he could also be useful, of course, in faction wars after the buffs. Like I said, now he's a proper poisoner. He can actually poison, but even so, even without that, now that he can, remove buffs and then place more poisons, he can be a really, really strong poison champion, even if the enemy waves go first. Thinking hard mode faction wars thoughts. When it comes to that, where they might outspeed you a little bit, or they might go first or something like that, and then you place block buffs afterward, which is really good as well, but you can just kind of poison them to death. And then of course, for niche things like the Cursed City, he can definitely be useful because he is a support who can effectively deal damage via the poisons, but also have a good amount of utility. Again, the block buffs, the buff stripping, the cleansing for your team. He can keep your team alive, he can keep them protected with the shield, and he can also deal out passive damage with the poisons that has a relatively high ceiling in terms of the potential for poisons as well. So it can be really tough when in a lot of support based or support limited stages in the Cursed City where you might struggle, I should say, to deal damage to the waves. So there you have it. That's going to do it for the Free-to-Play Champion Showcase for the freshly buffed King Gallcobar, or King Gallcobuffed as I like to call him. Even though his kit is still fairly niche, I do think he's a lot more useful and versatile than he was before. So if you are interested in trying to build some sort of poison explosion composition around him, then he can definitely do the job now, and he can make a really, really fast team. As we saw, even with a slightly inefficient team composition, we're still getting times close to a minute, maybe 90 seconds with some bad RNG, which is a respectable run, I would say, at least for a hard mode 10 dragon run. Let me know if you guys have King Gallcobar on your account. He's been sitting in your vault for years or months, and if you're now interested in trying him out in the Dragon Slayer specifically. I would love to know what teams you guys can come up with to utilize his kit in this endeavor. As always, if you did find this video helpful, then be sure to hit that like button down below. It really does help out the channel, and feel free to hit the subscribe button down below as well, if and only if you're enjoying the content overall on the channel for more content just like this one in the future. Thanks for watching, and have a good one.